Want to create something extraordinary? Create perfection. Our lifestyle appliances make it easy. KitchenAid, Ventura TV appliance, and you, when only the best will do.
Hi, I'm John Mallos. Welcome to this live edition of Connect with Me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV on this Monday morning. It's on the air, off the presses. A first-time guest here from the media. Well, he used to work in the media. Now he works in public relations. We'll tell you what agency he works for. 436-ME-TV option 11 if you want to call in. Back in a moment. Back here on the program on a Monday morning on the showroom floor at Ventura TV. I'm glad you're here. Hope you had a great weekend. I hope you stayed cool and dry, my friends. Well, unless you jumped in the pool. Hey, speaking of which, you know, it got near 100 degrees over the weekend on Saturday. So that reminds me about tomorrow's program. We have somebody in who is going to talk to you about how to service your air conditioner and what you should be doing. It's kind of an ask the expert, maybe focus on business type thing, but you might want to think about any kind of air conditioning repairs or tune-ups at this point because the hot season is here, my friends. Hey, today's program is sponsored by Dr. Thomas Casagrande. You know, he's the man who owns 2020 Optometrics out there at Shaw and Blackstone. Thanks for the sponsorship today. As usual, my friends, you're watching us live on Comcast, channel 187. As always, here Monday through Friday, live at 10 o'clock to 11, and on 43.6 and 13.1 if you're watching us over the air. If you want to watch the replay of this program, you can at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and 13.6, and then 8 o'clock tonight, 4.6 Biz TV. Twitter account is, of course, at John Mallos. Me TV. Of course, the focus today is on the air, off the presses. A first-time guest here. He spent a number of years as a general assignment reporter at Channel 24 / Channel 47. They're kind of one and the same because they're owned by the same company. It is Nexstar. Well, not all that long ago, in fact, less than a year ago, he left and he went to work for the Fresno County Sheriff's Department as the Public Information Officer. And he kind of followed in line with that of Zara Arboleta, who left, and went to Children's Hospital. Jenny Toasty left Channel 47, went to Fresno State. And of course, Janet Stoll, many years ago, a very fine young lady who I worked with at KMPH. She left to go to the Clovis Police Department back in 1999 or 2000, somewhere in there. So the man who used to work at 47, you may recognize the face and the voice. Take a look.
CBS 47's Tony Botti is live at the scene with the condition of the officer and the suspects involved. Tony?
Well, Catherine, to quote Police Chief Jerry Dyer, we are real lucky that we do not have a dead police officer out here tonight. It was his reaction time and his training which ultimately saved his life. Now, police tell me that this officer was driving to the Southeast District substation, which is just down the street from here, to begin his shift, when 4 people in a car pulled up next to him at a light and began staring him down, shouting out, "What gang do you belong to?" Now, the officer, of course, ignored them, but then the suspects reportedly pulled out a gun and fired multiple rounds at his car. The officer had his gun on him and returned fire. He then drove down the street to the substation and alerted his fellow officers, who hit the streets looking for the suspects.
Live in our studio now is Tony Botti, the Public Information Officer for the Fresno County Sheriff's Department, the former General Assignment Reporter, of course, at 24/47. We'll talk about the relations between the Sheriff's Department and the media, and also what's been happening in this country the past year or so between Well, the general public and police across the nation, not only here, but in Ferguson, in New York, in Cleveland, right here in our own city of Fresno. You're welcome to call in. Tony Botti is here from the Fresno County Sheriff's Department, 436-ME-TV, option 11. He'll also answer any questions, I would assume, within reason, about the Fresno County Sheriff's Department and his fairly new position. Back in just a moment.
Euronews, most-watched news channel in Europe.
We need help to find this missing child. Hallie Cummings was 7 when she went missing. She was last seen in Satsuma, Florida in February of 2009. This is what we believe she looks like today at age 11. If you have any information, please call the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THE-LOST. That's 1-800-843-5678. Please help bring Hallie Cummings home.
At 2020 Optometric, your vision is their focus. Whether you're 5 or 65, Dr. Thomas Casagrande will get to know you, your lifestyle, and vision needs to ensure that your contacts or eyeglasses are a perfect fit and the right prescription every time. With the Valley's largest selection of eyewear, 2020 has over 2,000 frames, including top designer brands like Coach, Tiffany, Prada, Ray-Ban, Oakley, and more. Eye exams start as low as $89, so call or stop by to schedule your appointment today. We are back here on the program on a Monday morning, and our thanks to that man that you saw just a moment ago, Dr. Thomas Casagrande. He's a good man. And, you know, Dennis Hart, who is a regular guest here, always makes fun of me because he always tells me, oh, you're going to go in and see Casagrande. Yes, I am at some point because my 20/20 eyesight left me many years ago. Tony Botti, good to see you, my friend. How are you?
Good to see you. Good to be here, John.
Hey, thanks for coming in. So, fairly new gig for you at the Fresno County Sheriff's Department, and you kind of followed in the footsteps of Janet Stoll, Zara Arboleta, Jenny Toasty. So how's it working out so far?
It's been going great. I mean, I enjoy my gig a lot. Something a little different every day. I mean, since I am fairly new, I've only been there 7 months, so yeah. It's a learning process. You know, there's lots of great people there at the sheriff's office, and yeah. I'm just enjoying it every day.
Yeah, similar but different in nature because of the job description and the duties. Tell us what's similar about your job in terms of the media and what's different about it.
Very similar in the effect that, you know, you still have to have that newsworthiness to gauge what's the big topic of the day. You know, I get in every day and I'll look at the call list from overnight, what's going on during the day. Is there anything that's noteworthy that we maybe need to get out there, push out there? But the immediacy is a little bit different sometimes. You know, in news, everybody wants it now. You know, I got to have the details. But in law enforcement, it's not that simple. You know, sometimes you have information, but you have to hold it back. Time and place for everything.
Yeah, so you can't. I mean, yeah, in the news business, it's like, let's beat the other station. Let's beat the Fresno Bee. Let's be first. That mentality, you have to take a back seat, huh? Now.
Yeah, I mean, you really do, because I mean, in law enforcement, you know, you're dealing with people's lives. I mean, this is serious stuff, and it's not a game. It's not a race to be first with information, and you know, and that should really follow the same way in news too. I mean, yeah, there's competitiveness, but you should also have an obligation to be accurate. You know, I always say I'd rather be second and right than first and wrong, and I think unfortunately in today's age, especially with social media, that kind of thought, that train of thought has gone to the wayside.
When you put something out to the public and release it as part of the Fresno Sheriff's Department, is there someone that you have to check with first to make sure it's okay to release that information? Would that be Sheriff Margaret Mims, or who oversees that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a good question, because that's been one of the biggest learning curves for me. You know, we have lots of sergeants, lieutenants, captains, then of course an undersheriff, assistant sheriff. The ranks just go on up. Well, yeah, you have to get that approved by somebody up the totem pole before anything goes out.
Anything, huh?
Anything.
Even the slightest of information, you've got to check or you're going to be in trouble.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I mean, that's what, it's the checks and balances there, because, you know, I could know the story frontwards and backwards, but, you know, it's the wording too. You want to make sure that you run it past somebody, hey, you know, I'm uncomfortable with this, let's tweak that. But what's interesting is that all these people are so busy, a lot of times it's tough to find somebody. So I might have the release written at 11 in the morning, but because I can't get somebody to sign off on it, I don't send it out till 1 or 2 in the afternoon. So it kind of makes sense to me now. When I was a reporter, I would say, what's taking them so long? And now I can understand. Right.
So what do you do? Because I know when I was a news reporter, and even now I can be a little pushy sometimes, but what do you do when you get, because you worked in the business and you know a lot of these people, most of them actually, when you get a really pushy reporter or a person that works at an assignment desk, like an assignment editor or whatever at one of the stations, and they're calling you and they're pushing your buttons. Tony, I need it and I need it now. How do you react?
I think I've had a pretty good experience so far. I haven't really had to deal with that, and I think a lot of it goes to my experience.
Yeah.
And the fact that I personally know these people. You know, I worked alongside, you know, I crossed paths with them in the field. You know, there's a lot of turnover in this market, but still you get to know folks. But a large majority of them, you know, I've established good positive relationships. So I think there's that mutual understanding that they know that I know what they need. So if I say I need a few more minutes, they get that. So I think they're eventually, you know, they're knowing that I'm eventually going to come around and get them what they need.
Yeah, 436 MeTV option 11, and we're talking with Tony Botti of the Fresno County Sheriff's Department. You got any questions you want to call in and ask on this Monday morning, feel free. Toughest part of the job so far is what? In your opinion? Or is there really a tough part? Maybe you kind of eased into it. I don't know. Yeah,
I mean, I think the thing that helped me is I always had a passion for law enforcement. I had a pretty good understanding. But
really?
Yeah, I mean, just working, you know, on that side, I followed a lot of the crime beats in my everyday duties. So you get to know a lot of folks. You get to know the language and stuff. But it is a totally different adjustment once you actually work there. Like, number one, to learn how big the sheriff's office is.
How big is it?
I mean, it's huge. I mean, as far as all the units that we are responsible for, you think of something as a CHP or a Fresno Police, they primarily focus in patrol. We have courts, we have jails, we have an air support unit, the list goes on, dive team, search and rescue. So with 6,000 square miles to cover in the county, you have to be very diversified.
With how many officers, too?
Well, yeah, we probably have about 200 deputies.
Okay.
And that's just on the streets. Then we put about another 110 inside the courts. And then we have correctional officers. While they don't have the same duties, they're in charge. Yeah, we have 3 jails. So they're in charge of all the jails. So there's a heavy workload that goes in.
Quickly, before we go to break here, we have the main jail downtown. What are the other 2?
They actually border. So if you just crossed M Street or Fresno to M right there on the corner, on the south side, that's the old annex jail.
Gotcha.
Primarily women are in there. And then the main one you see there on the corner of Fresno and M, just to the north of that is the North Annex Jail. So it's actually 3 different facilities, but they're all in a line. All
right, Tony Botti is here from the Fresno County Sheriff's Department, and you're welcome to call in 436 MeTV option 11. Plenty of time left. Got about 45 minutes left here. We're going to talk about the relationship between residents and police, not only here in the city of Fresno, but across the country. Dr. Thomas Casagrande is our sponsor today. Remember that guy? He's from 2020 Optometrics. Good guy. Yeah, you got to go out there and see him if you've got some eyesight problem. Back in just a moment.
We need help to find this missing child. April Andrews went missing when she was 15 years old. She was last seen in Pea Ridge, Arkansas in November of 2006. This is what we believe she looks like today at 23. If you have any information, please call the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THE-LOST. That's 1-800-843-5678. Please help bring April Andrews home.
At 2020 Optometric, your vision is their focus. Whether you're 5 or 65, Dr. Thomas Casagrande will get to know you, your lifestyle, and vision needs to ensure that your contacts or eyeglasses are a perfect fit and the right prescription every time. With the Valley's largest selection of eyewear, 2020 has over 2,000 frames, including top designer brands like Coach, Tiffany, Prada, Ray-Ban, Oakley, and more. Eye exams start as low as $89, so call or stop by to schedule your appointment today.
Frigidaire. We introduced the first home freezer, the first pulsator agitator washer, and now we introduce the Frigidaire Orbit Clean dishwasher, designed with a unique wash arm that gives you 4 times more water coverage for a consistently better clean. Frigidaire, over 90 years of legendary innovation.
See the full line of Frigidaire appliances at Ventura TV Electronics and Appliances.
Air here in the west, and this story out of Southern California, those stunning images out of Fresno at this hour. A massive fireball after a gas explosion. Parts of Highway 99 shut down, multiple reports of injuries. Rescue teams rushing to the scene, and ABC's Candace Gibson is in California tonight.
The flames soaring more than 200 feet sky.
You can feel the heat.
Shutting down major highways in Fresno, California. The explosion happening at a gun range belonging to the Fresno County Sheriff's Department when a road worker drove his tractor trailer over a gas line.
It is still emitting as far as I'm being told right now. Fresno Fire's on scene trying to tend to any fires that are breaking out at this time right now.
Tonight, 9 people are injured. 4 of them are in critical condition. Candace Gibson, ABC News, Los Angeles.
Of course, that major gas explosion that took place out near Herndon and 99. A report from David Muir and ABC News, and our own very own Tony Botti was on that part of that newscast and got a lot of national coverage, of course, that day. We got a phone call coming in, so good morning, caller. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering if Tony, since he's worked both sides of the relationship between reporters and himself, if he could recommend one thing to reporters that would make his job easier, better, and their job easier and better.
Ah, good question.
I think it's just, be patient. I mean, it's that happy medium. You have to be aggressive in that business. Otherwise, you're just not going to be able to hang. You're going to get run over. But at the same time, it all comes back to people skills. Treat people with respect. Be patient. If they give you an answer, that we're not ready for that right now, respect their wishes, because just like anything else in business, if you go to the grocery store, if you treat people with that respect, they're going to remember that, and when you come back around and need them for something else, I think it's all going to work out for you.
Yeah. Are you there, caller?
I am.
Yeah. Anything else kind of satisfy your needs there?
Yeah, well, from the reporter standpoint, I like an aggressive reporter because they're there to get the information I want. But I understand that he's got a job to do and has to go through certain things and get approved before he can release things, or the Sheriff's Department can release things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, something I would add to that is, yes, when you are a reporter, your responsibility is to be an advocate for the viewer. So if I was at, say, a press conference, a lot of times I have to think in my mind, what is it that the average person on the street would want to ask? You can't be afraid to ask that tough question, because, if you think that you're going to hurt the person's feelings who's up there speaking to you, then you probably shouldn't be in that role. I think that if it's anybody in, as a public official who's standing up there, they would expect that. The hard questions are going to come. It's whether you can answer them. And if you say you can't answer them, me as a reporter, I can accept that. But, I have my obligation. I have my duty to at least ask that question and see if it initiates a response.
Hey, I'm just curious, caller. Are you a reporter? Are you a former reporter? What are you?
No, I do somebody likes to watch the news.
Oh, okay. just curious, out of curiosity, yeah. Because your first obligation, obviously, Tony, is the Fresno County Sheriff's Department and protecting. I mean, heaven forbid you release false information because you didn't have all the facts and you jumped the gun. That would not be a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you just have to, sometimes be brief. And something even like the gas explosion, which we just showed, an enormous story, largest thing I've had to be out in front of since I've been at the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
But you know what? Sometimes specifics aren't that important. They might mean a little bit more to the reporter or the public at large. You know, how many people were injured? Well, we don't know. We're trying to assess that. Just say several people.
Exactly.
The numbers, you always want to be able to change. You know, you don't want to overcommit to something and then go back and go, oh, you know, we really goofed that one up.
Is it better? We're looking at the gas explosion now. Some video, obviously, some drive-bys here. The heat I heard from this explosion, just as those people were driving by right there, were just very intense. But is it better to underestimate something rather than overstate it?
I think so, because I mean, you can always, you know, kind of up the ante a little bit later on. I mean, to me, in a situation like that, I think I came out and I first said we heard as many as 9 people were injured.
How many people altogether were there? Like 13?
Yeah, it fluctuated between 11 to 13 between who actually got treatment. So, you know, that's a case in point. You know, if I come out and I say that there's 9 people injured and, you know, we find out later on it's actually 11, that's easy to adjust. But if I say that there's 9 and then we know that there's only 2, then, you know, that's a big difference.
That's a huge difference, and you don't want to be faced with that situation and then having to answer, of course, to your boss. And we still don't know exactly what happened in this. I know there's some lawsuits. There's very, you know, I think you're limited to what you can say about this because it's in litigation right now. So, but by far, like you said, the biggest story you've covered so far, not covered, but actually were involved with since your time the last 7 months at the Sheriff's Department, right? Yeah, it was, and it was very unique too in that it wasn't just a sheriff's office case. I mean, it happened on our Sheriff's Foundation property, the gun range which the foundation owns. So that's what really launched us into the story. But it was a multi-agency effort. I mean, CHP, Fresno PD, the Fresno Fire, everybody came together on that one. So it was a great learning experience for me because this catastrophe that happened at once, all of us were there, and you really have to learn how to divvy up who's going to handle what as far as disseminating information. What was your day like on that day? It was an ordinary day. I mean, it's kind of the cliche thing to say. You know, I was at my desk, I was typing some stuff up, and I always have the scanner on at my desk. I'm listening for our calls, and I heard one of our deputies come on and say, hey, we've just had a major explosion. I've got some people injured, you know, send EMS code 3 right now. And immediately I started grabbing my stuff, and I was heading out the door to go there. And as quick as I was to jump the call and get up there, it was still a traffic nightmare. It took me time just to get through all the bumper-to-bumper traffic to get to the scene. Now, do you carry do you have even though you're not really technically a law enforcement person, you know, you're not part of law enforcement, you're not an officer, do you still have to carry do you carry a badge, an identification badge, or what? What do you carry on you to get through the lines? Yeah, I do have an identification that associates me with the sheriff's office. Okay. So it's not a badge. No, it's you know, like a key card that you know any county employee would have, but you know, it has my picture, says who I am, and you know, just like anything else in the media, you know, you flash your sign and it allows the officers to know who you are and let you go through the scene. Yeah, so you can cut through the police line, so to speak, with that identification. Correct. Right, and so, you know, this happened kind of around what it was about 2 o'clock, 2:30 in the afternoon on a Friday, no less, when the traffic out there is just starting to get heavy. Right. Yeah, and I mean, I'm listening to our police channel as I'm driving up the freeway, and I hear them saying they're going to close down Herndon. So I'm like, okay, you know, I'm coming from south. I'm jumping off to Golden State. Well, Golden State was a nightmare, and you add on top of that, they stopped the train because they didn't want it to pass through the area where the fire was going. So the train, you know, everybody who's driven through Golden State and Shaw knows what a nightmare that is on a good day. And now you had a train that was dividing the traffic on both sides, which in that case probably actually helped me because I was able to sail through without people coming in from going westbound over Shaw. Quickly, how long did it take you to get to the scene? I think it ended up taking me 25, 30 minutes. 30 minutes. So, which, I mean, looking back on it, that's pretty good. If I'd have left any later, I'd have been in real trouble. Yeah. Tony Botti is here. He is from the Fresno County Sheriff's Department. He's the public information officer out there. So if you have any calls, any questions, feel free to call in at 436-MeTV option 11. Today's program sponsored by Dr. Thomas Casagrande of 2020 Optometrics. 5 or 65, Dr. Thomas Casagrande will get to know you, your lifestyle, and vision needs to ensure that your contacts or eyeglasses are a perfect fit and the right prescription every time. With the Valley's largest selection of eyewear, 2020 has over 2,000 frames, including top designer brands like Coach, Tiffany, Prada, Ray-Ban, Oakley, and more. Eye exams start as low as $89, so call or stop by to schedule your appointment today.
Retro TV, your home for classic television. The greatest shows in history are here for you to enjoy. Join Cosby and Colt as secret agent men in I Spy. Ride along the Ponderosa with the Cartwrights in Bonanza. Hit the beat with Joe Friday in Dragnet. And that's not all. Retro TV offers endless fun and excitement for the whole family to enjoy. Retro TV, the best in classic television.
You can find Retro TV on over-the-air channel 13.4.
We need help to find this missing child. Erica Parsons was 13 when she disappeared. She was last seen in Salisbury, North Carolina in November of 2011. This is what we believe she looks like today at age 16. If you have any information, please call the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THE-LOST. That's 1-800-843-5678.
Officers fire thousands of shots at the Fresno Peace Officers Range each month, and each spent casing is collected and recycled. But recently, the collection was coming up light.
Starting at the beginning of the year that our training staff out there noticed some of the brass casings were disappearing.
It seems someone had broken into the range and stolen the recyclables. A sheriff's deputy noticed a hole in this fence and a cut lock, and soon he was on the thief's trail.
He did a little bit of investigating. He noticed some tire tracks from a dolly, and he started following those back. It took him down the street on Weber Avenue.
The tracks led to this fence line about a half-mile away down the railroad tracks. And inside the cluttered backyard, the deputy spotted barrels still filled with spent casings. Detectives believe Osvaldo Blancarte was only recycling a little at a time so as not to raise suspicions. The casings go for about $4 a pound, and it can really add up fast.
He probably stole about 2,000 pounds, and that amounts to about $8,000.
So that was a story about the shell casings. Whatever happened with that, by the way? Never solved the case?
Yeah, they arrested the guy, and DA actually prosecuted right away. He got sentenced. It was one of the quickest cases I can remember seeing. So, yeah, the suspect's now doing time in jail for that.
Pretty, you know, I tell you, some of these crooks and some of these criminals, they're pretty ingenious and pretty creative in a way to you know, if you're a thief, I guess you have to be. You know, a good way to make money, go out there and get the shell casings, right?
Well, I mean, if you're a thief, you have that mentality that, you know, you're going to come up with the easiest way to get the score. I mean, they're not like money. Yeah, they're not like the average person who's going to go out and work hard. You know, they're looking for holes in the fence, so to speak, and just the easiest way to get their hands on something. And, you know, unfortunately, a lot of times it just comes back to drugs. I mean, they're trying to fuel their habit, and that's why we see this cycle of the same crimes happen over and over.
You know, I want to ask you, because yesterday Jerry Dyer, the police department here, the police chief, he held a news conference. Maybe you saw it, I don't know, but he was talking, you know, about methamphetamine use and a lot of robberies and break-ins. And from what you've seen at the sheriff's department, are a lot of the robberies and break-ins, do they have to do with drugs? Do they have to do with just fueling the habit? From what you've seen.
The majority do. I think the other thing is, and it's actually, I think, good news for the public, is a lot of times these burglaries and robberies, the suspects are known to each other. They might have a quarrel over something. Somebody opens their mouth a little too much and tells somebody else what they have, so they have a target on their back. So when those people are going after each other, it's kind of self-explanatory. It's the random ones that really get our attention, and those are the ones we want to try and put a stop to, because those are the ones that can spiral out of control and become violent.
Is Prop 47 a problem?
It's an absolute problem.
Really? In what way? Explain from your point of view, because I know Chief Dyer explained that yesterday. I know he works for the police and you're the sheriff, but how do you guys see it?
Yeah, I mean, we see eye to eye on that. It's bad news for law enforcement up and down the state, and I think for the public at large, because these are crimes which a lot of people would be going to jail for in the past, and it's now considered a misdemeanor. And so when you take away from an officer being able to issue a felony to somebody and turn that into a misdemeanor, that's very disheartening to the officer, because they work hard to arrest people and throw them in jail.
Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, my question is did the SC have an emergency response plan when that big pipe blew up by the gun range?
Did who have an emergency plan?
Sheriff's Department, SD, I think he said.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, public safety at large, I mean, you all respond the same way no matter what type of incident. I mean, nobody foresees a gas line exploding, but you handle that just as you would any other major emergency. Everybody's on the same page. They go through training all year long on different incidents, and the way in which they all responded, I think, would have been standard for any other type of emergency of the same magnitude.
I want to put up, and I know you probably have to limit your comments because it's not your agency, and I know you don't want to say any disparaging remarks about not a competing agency, but one that you work closely with. But let's put up the photo, if we can, of Keith Foster. Did this kind of surprise you? Because we're kind of talking about the same thing. We're talking about drugs. We're talking about fueling a habit. I don't know exactly what Keith Foster's involvement was. I know what he was busted for, what he was charged with, but we don't know the extent of it. We really don't know the details. This thing hasn't gone to trial yet. Innocent until proven guilty. From your standpoint, Sheriff's Department, just the first question is, I guess you were as shocked as anybody, right? What did Margaret Mims say about it? Did she have any comment or thoughts about what had happened to Keith Foster?
Well, I mean, I think we were all surprised. Keith's been, a law enforcement officer in this community for a great number of years. I know him personally.
Do you really?
Yeah, I mean, of course, covering Fresno Police, I had a good, cordial relationship with Deputy Chief Foster, and he's always great to me. It's sad is what it is, because number one, whatever he's got going on in his personal life, and now to see this transpire, nobody wins in this situation. It happened to Fresno Police, but all law enforcement takes a hit, because like anything else, when something bad happens within an agency, it can create a black eye for other agencies.
Is it a black eye for all law enforcement in this area?
It can, because the people that are going to be naysayers about law enforcement to begin with, they can use this as fuel to say, see, you know what, I told you, they're corrupt. This is what they do. And Chief Dyer has said it a number of times, there's bad apples in every bunch. You can't control them all. Whether it's, at a department store, somebody who's stealing merchandise, everybody else can be good, but if one person's bad, the negative always gets the headline. And so, we just hope that they can work their way through this and come out better for it.
And I want to roll some B-roll, if we could, of Jerry Dyer. We'll talk over it. And he was, at the news conference when they announced the Keith Foster thing. The look on his face, he looked like he had lost his best friend, which he did, but just the shock and disappointment. He almost looked like, he looked kind of peaked. He almost looked like he was going to faint to a certain extent. Jerry Dyer, of course, and Margaret Mims are the two chief law enforcement officers in this area. How, in your opinion, do they collaborate together on information? Is there that collaboration and cooperation between the two agencies, especially between the chief and Margaret Mims?
Well, I mean, I think they obviously have to stay, abreast of certain situations. Also, anytime there's a law that impacts California, they have to be on the same page. The other thing is that, we at the sheriff's office run the jail. Well, Chief Dyer and his people send people to our jail. So there's a lot of communication around jail issues. Though that's the one common thread that they really hold. But, at the same time, they're both in law enforcement, but they have different responsibilities. Policing the county is very different from policing the city. And so while there's some things that are similar, there's much that's different.
What's different about it, quickly before we go to break?
Well,
the biggest difference, in your opinion?
Well, the biggest difference is the manpower. I mean, Fresno police can have 15 officers at your door in 3 minutes because they're working in a very dense area. Sheriff, we're out there, one deputy covering a large area of land. So, you got to use those communication skills when you're a deputy. You got to talk. You buy yourself some time and wait for your backup to come before you can move forward.
Well, the other thing, I think the police department has more officers. They have 600 and something, and you have how many?
We have around 200 that patrol the streets. Fresno Police has 700, I think.
700?
Somewhere right around there.
Okay.
But yeah, they're very densely populated areas. I mean, they have 500,000 people to be responsible for, and there's lots of apartment complexes and things of that nature. You go out on county roads, a lot of times you won't see a house for a mile once you're driving. So
that's correct.
It's very different in that respect.
Back with more here with Tony Botti, the Public Information Officer for the Fresno County Sheriff's Department. And our program today is sponsored by Dr. Thomas Casagrande. Back with your phone calls, 436-MeTV, option 11. Back in a moment.
It's almost time.
Now we'll find out once and for all about Clark Kent, Superman.
Look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's a TV show.
Yes, but who is he? What's his name?
He's Superman.
Golly, Clark, won't that be wonderful seeing Superman
fighting a never-ending battle for truth, justice, and television the MeTV way.
No one can do the things that Superman does.
The adventures of Superman.
Now on MeTV Fresno, Xfinity 187.
We need help to find this missing child. Hallie Cummings was 7 when she went missing. She was last seen in Satsuma, Florida in February of 2009. This is what we believe she looks like today at age 11. If you have any information, please call the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THE-LOST. That's 1-800-843-5678. Please help bring Hallie Cummings home.
At 20/20 Optometric, your vision is their focus. Whether you're 5 or 65, Dr. Thomas Casagrande will get to know you, your lifestyle, and vision needs to ensure that your contacts or eyeglasses are a perfect fit and the right prescription every time. With the Valley's largest selection of eyewear, 20/20 has over 2,000 frames, including top designer brands like Coach, Tiffany, Prada, Ray-Ban, Oakley, and more. Eye exams start as low as $89, so call or stop by to schedule your appointment today. Back here on the program, Connect with me on MeTV Fresno. Tony Botti is here from the Fresno County Sheriff's Department. I want to talk to you, Tony, a little bit about what happened in Baltimore. Of course, not all that long ago, some of the riots there. And, Freddie Gray, obviously, was, I don't know, I guess you could say mishandled by police. I don't know. I guess the jury's still out on that, too. But he died in police custody, and there were riots for up to, at least a few days. They, during a Baltimore Orioles game, they banned all the fans. They played the game. They had to call the National Guard in. There was a controversy with the mayor. How do you see the relationship between just residents versus the police, not only nationwide, but here in Fresno?
I think we have a fairly good relationship, especially at the sheriff's office. I think that, throughout the years we've built up that bond and that trust. And I think you go back to, say, a Ferguson. A lot of people don't look at the fact that there's a lot of layers here. This didn't just happen overnight. They didn't get upset with police over this one incident.
We're looking at Baltimore here, how they burned this CVS pharmacy, and there were a lot of riots, cars overturned, cars being smashed, rioting, looting. people getting hurt, arrested. Many people in law enforcement in the city of Baltimore were injured during some of these riots.
Yeah, and it's upsetting to see that because really, you know, this is a bunch of nonsense that should have never happened. There's certain ways to speak out. You know, the peaceful protests that we saw afterwards, that's what should have started from the beginning. But, you know, you have this group that they're opportunists, burning down a drugstore. This has nothing to do with if you felt there was injustice to Freddie Gray and his death. And now, you know, these poor folks who go to work every single day there at that CVS, they're out of a job because of the actions of these people who, you know, spoke out in the wrong way.
So how do you mend the fences, so to speak, between residents and police, not only nationwide, but, you know, there's been some unrest here. I'm not sure it's really necessarily been with the sheriff's department, but there has been a lot of negative talk and protest directed at Fresno police at times for certain shootings. And how do you mend the fences between police and residents, or sheriffs and residents?
Well, like I said, it starts long before these types. You've got to build that relationship with the people from the beginning. Transparency is obviously a huge thing, and I think that both Fresno Police and we at the Sheriff's Office do that. We try and let folks know as much as we can without jeopardizing a case. It goes back to there's just certain things we can't get into. But, you know, I touch back on that Ferguson. That thing was mishandled, you know, from the get-go.
By who?
By police, number one. You know, they obviously didn't have a good relationship with their community. There was some mistrust. And then compounding that was the fact that when, you know, Michael Brown was shot to death, they didn't jump out in front of the story right away and brief the public as to what happened. They waited about 4 hours. You know, you got to get out in front a little bit sooner and just say, hey, yes, this happened. We're not trying to cover anything up. We're investigating more.
Let's put up a picture of Michael Brown and Officer Darren Wilson. They were at the center of the controversy last summer. Of course, there is Michael Brown. He was shot to death by Darren Wilson, and there is the officer there. He was interviewed by ABC and David Muir, or actually George Stephanopoulos, excuse me, and you know, Wilson basically says that he justifiably so shot Michael Brown, who was trying to grab his gun, and he was not being compliant with police. So what are police or law enforcement in general supposed to do when somebody like Brown is not compliant with the officer? What do you do?
And, you know, in my mind, if you're a suspect, whether you've done something wrong or not, just comply with the officer, because if you didn't do anything wrong, you know, the situation's going to, you know, resolve itself fairly quickly. Now, if that officer's acting out of reason, then you have a reason to file a complaint later on. But there's no reason to get into an argument, to struggle, and to where it could reach that level of deadly force.
Yeah, and so once again, what did police do wrong in Ferguson, in your opinion? You said it a minute ago, but I want to be clear on what your message is.
They delayed. They took too long. You know, it doesn't matter how much you say, it's the fact that you say something. So if an hour,
they should have said something right off the bat?
I would
even
say,
if it was minimal information?
Exactly. If even after an hour after he was shot, you know, if you even got up to the podium and said, look, we had an officer involved shooting, we do have a suspect dead at this time, that's all the details we have, we'll come back in a couple hours and give you the next update that we have.
They didn't do that?
No, they
Why?
waited. I just think that maybe they hadn't dealt with many situations like that. It was kind of new to them, and you know, they unfortunately lived and learned, and I think in the future they'll learn to act more swiftly.
And of course, I had read where Michael Brown's body was lying in the street for several hours in the heat.
Yeah, and that's another bad thing. I mean, you never want folks, whether it be in the public or in the media, to show up and be able to be that close to the body.
Which they were.
They were, and you know, that's another thing with the police department there. They should have had that thing taped off to get people further back. And don't, you know, that is a person that's lying there. Cover them, put a pop-up tent around, get that privacy for investigators to do their job, or, you know, take them off to the hospital. An ambulance had to have been there. Remove yourself from that situation so that, you know, you don't run into that.
Right, and of course, you know, there was a false narrative, hands up, don't shoot. Apparently Michael Brown never said that. or that never happened with the Michael Brown situation. So I don't know where that false narrative came up. I guess it was during an interview with a potential witness that was on the scene, as you recall. So when you get these false narratives, it takes off like wildfire too.
It does. I mean, it's that old telephone game, you know, when you tell a friend something, they tell somebody else. Eventually, it's going to spiral out of control. And I think what everybody needed to recognize in this situation is that, A, this was the wrong case to fight for. I mean, you had somebody who was a suspect in a crime, and, you know, it doesn't...
Non-compliant to boot.
Right. So he was being sought after, and obviously, you know, the facts show that there was a confrontation between he and the officer. So it's unfortunate that the national media and, you know, the public as a whole in the nation latched onto this case, because it really was the wrong case.
And that narrative's still being played out to a certain extent. You see people with T-shirts that say, "Hands up, don't shoot." Caller, go ahead, you're on the air.
I'm sorry to tell you this, but the graphics identifying your guest said that he was a pubic information officer. I'm sure you changed it by now. I hope. I just wanted to alert you to that little missing letter, the L.
Really? Okay, I did not know that. Huh, that's very interesting. News to me. Did you have any question? Or
I hope you get it fixed.
All right. I have no idea what you're talking about. I haven't been very observant during the show, so I've been focusing more on content than anything else. Tony Botti is here, Public Information Officer for the Fresno County Sheriff's Department. Dr. Thomas Casagrande is our sponsor here today. He's from 2020 Optometrics out Shaw and Blackstone. 436-ME-TV, option 11. Back in just a moment.
When she was 15 years old. She was last seen in Pea Ridge, Arkansas in November of 2006. This is what we believe she looks like today at 23. If you have any information, please call the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THE-LOST. That's 1-800-843-5678. Please help bring April Andrews home.
Euronews, most watched news channel in Europe.
At 2020 Optometric, your vision is their focus. Whether you're 5 or 65, Dr. Thomas Casagrande will get to know you, your lifestyle, and vision needs to ensure that your contacts or eyeglasses are a perfect fit and the right prescription every time. With the Valley's largest selection of eyewear, 2020 has over 2,000 frames, including top designer brands like Coach, Tiffany, Prada, Ray-Ban, Oakley, and more. Eye exams start as low as $89, so call or stop by to schedule your appointment today.
Frigidaire. We introduced the first home freezer, the first pulsator agitator washer, and now we introduce the Frigidaire Orbit Clean dishwasher, designed with a unique wash arm that gives you 4 times more water coverage for a consistently better clean. Frigidaire, over 90 years of legendary innovation.
See the full line of Frigidaire appliances at Ventura TV Electronics and Appliances.
Back here on the show with Tony Botti. He is the Public Information Officer for the Fresno County Sheriff's Department and only been on the job 7 months. Hey, our caller has only been on the line for like a minute or two. Are you there, sir?
Yes, I am.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm watching the Connect With Me.
Yeah.
That lady that just called right now, she don't know what she's talking about. I thought, she was being ignorant, but I have a question for Tony that whenever an officer says put your hands up, they should comply.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, cops by nature have to go into situations being a skeptic because they don't know what the suspect's going to do. The suspect knows what they're going to do. A best case scenario is they tell them put their hands up. You know, the situation takes care of itself. They put their hands down and it's over with. But it's like anything else. When you resist, that's when adrenaline levels get up. What are you hiding? All that sort of stuff. And that's where things can end in a bad way.
Officer approached me. I told him I have a sidearm. So everybody should comply with what the officer says. But that lady was ignorant.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for the call very much. So in Fresno County, maybe you know the answer to this. There are those who apply for concealed weapons permits. Even you had to apply for one. Just because you work for the Sheriff's Department doesn't mean you automatically get the right to carry. When you carry a gun and you're legally carrying with a permit, what does that under the law allow you to do in a dangerous situation?
Basically, it gives you the ability to use it in a life-threatening situation. I mean,
but that's such a broad statement. Can you narrow it down a little bit?
I mean, it's hard to put it in a context, but if you feel that you're in a situation where, you know, you could be, you know, beat up very badly or killed, you know, somebody just shouting words at you doesn't give you the right to pull out your gun and say, hey, quit talking to me, I have a gun. No, it's you'll know, your instincts will tell you if you're in that situation.
But it has to be life-threatening, just like a police officer.
Well, and it's a perception too, because everybody's different. You know, a 5'5" woman who comes up, gets in my face, and yells at me. I'm a taller guy, bigger guy. I might not feel threatened my life, but you know, you turn the tables on that, and somebody my size comes up to the 5'5" woman. Maybe she feels like her life's in danger. So it's a perception is what I think ultimately dictates how the person would react.
Are there, though, I don't know if you can answer this, are there a lot of people applying for these permits?
There are. We've issued a lot. We continue to get a lot of applications. I think Sheriff Mims told me at last count we had a little over 6,000 CCWs out there in the county.
Just waiting to be approved?
No, those are
active. Out there,
those
that
are
actually
active.
people that actually have them.
Correct.
6,000. Is that a lot?
I think we're #1 in the state.
Really?
Yeah, because Sheriff Mims is a huge proponent of the Second Amendment, and
okay.
You know, that doesn't mean that she just hands them out to anybody, but if you go through the process and you know everything checks out, your background, and you can show a true need of why you feel you might need it, they are getting issued.
Caller, go ahead. You're on the air.
Good morning, John. I just tuned in a little while ago, but I did catch this one question. The reason why they left the body there,
yes.
It was because of the coroner. They were late coming, or it was like 2 hours.
You're talking about Michael Brown, right?
Yeah, yes, John. They should have covered the body. True. There's some issues, there are situations that they should have done, but they could not touch the body. That's what was brought up during the discussion a number of months ago,
right,
when this happened. So, and he should also, the gentleman, your guest, should check in that too. Well, how long does that true for here in Fresno? How long does it take, or we have to wait for the coroner to come first, or whatever? And maybe that would help for him also. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Great call. So what's the procedure here if somebody gets shot? They're lying there in the street. Is the body immediately covered? Do you have to wait for the coroner, or is the body just lying there?
I mean, every situation is obviously different. You know, usually if the emergency medical team gets there right away, you would want to put that person in an ambulance and transport them to the hospital. You know, even if they die at the hospital, it gets them out of the area. It limits the public from being, you know, witness to that sort of a thing. If they are killed on the spot there, the main thing, like in that case, is you've got to back your people up. Set that line deeper so that people can't see them so closely. And then when you do cover the body, you know, you can work and not have eyes staring directly at you.
Is that kind of the protocol?
It is, yeah. And, you know, if they established that line that close, there was nothing to say they couldn't tell people back up and drop that line further back.
Caller, go ahead. You're on the air.
Yes, on concealed weapons, is it like if you get one in California, does it allow you other states? My understanding is limited to a certain number of states. And then also, if you get it from, I think it's like Utah or some other state, it covers more states than just California. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with all other states. I do know that if you get a CCW in California, it's good all throughout California. You can't carry it across state lines. I know if you were to vacation in another state for a month or so, there might be a process where you could apply through that county that you're going to be in and say, hey, I have this in California, can you validate it? That might be a process. I'm not totally up on that, but I do know that California is strictly for California.
Right, and so getting back to the concealed weapons permits. Now, if you have a weapon, two questions. You have to be in a life-threatening situation, like an officer. That's number one, to be able to use it, justifiably use it. And number two, concealed weapons permit. Does that speak for itself? It has to be concealed?
Absolutely, yeah. You're not a law enforcement officer, so you can't just walk around town carrying it on your hip exposed.
Is there a law against that?
Yeah, you'd be in big trouble.
Okay.
You're not an officer. Only officers are allowed to expose their weapons because they're a sworn peace officer, and that's part of their equipment they wear every day. I mean, it's in the name, concealed. You have to cover it up. Not everybody knows you have a CCW. You might know, but you walk around wearing that on your hip and other people see it, everybody's going to maybe become in a panic.
What if you have it under your coat, like you're wearing a coat jacket right now, you can have it right here, but people can see, say, the butt of it or something sticking out, or it's just your coat is kind of bulging there. Is that improper or what?
Yeah, because that's called printing, and you don't want that. You don't want the shape of the gun to show through your clothing.
Oh, you don't?
No, because, I mean, all that does is tell the guy over there that, hey, he's carrying a gun and I can see it under his shirt. So concealed means concealed. You want to hide it. You should be able to walk around and no one know that you're
It's kind of
carrying
hard, though,
one.
especially in the summer. If you're wearing shorts, if you're wearing a T-shirt, where are you going to carry it? Or if you're wearing tight jeans?
They make so many things nowadays, though, John. I mean, you'd be surprised if
Really?
you went online and you did a search for holsters, and I mean, they have shirts with hidden pockets and all this sort of stuff. There's businesses out there that really cater to the CCW community.
Tony, from what you're seeing, we've only got a couple of minutes left. Biggest crimes happening right now in Fresno. We got 1 minute left. Is it methamphetamine use? Is it robberies? Is it a combination of both? What is it? Drugs?
It's the property crimes. It's burglaries. You throw some robberies in there. And as we had mentioned earlier in the show, it goes back to meth that fuels a lot of that. People are opportunists. They're waiting for you to leave your house so that they can get in, grab your stuff, and go.
And what is it a good idea to have a burglar alarm?
Oh, absolutely.
How big a deterrent is that?
Oh, I mean, anything you can do. I mean, it's the old phrase, harden the target. I mean, locking your car up, locking your house up, those are the simplest things. The thief doesn't want to have to work for anything. If he can just come up and turn your front door and go, wow, thanks for making it easy for me.
We have lazy thieves, too? Even the thieves are lazy.
Right. Imagine that.
Tony, I'm sorry, we're out of time.
All right.
But come back, would you?
Absolutely.
Well, I enjoyed having you as a guest.
It's good being here.
You're a lot of fun and good information. All right, Tony Botti from the Fresno County Sheriff's Department. He is the Public Information Officer. Back tomorrow with Ron Renobato. He owns an air conditioning company. He's going to give you some summer tips on what to do with your air conditioner. Back tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody. See you then.